usually not the smallest room I've ever given a speech to. My name's Ben Leader. I'm the managing partner at Elrod Pope Law Firm. We're an injury firm based out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, just a couple hours up the road. We've got 6 offices across North Carolina and South Carolina and been helping injured people since 1980. Want to just start out by noting that someone with case status must really not like me, putting me last on the roster and directly after Bill. Bill's a great guy. He's awesome. I've gotten some great insights from him over the years that have really had a profound impact on our firm and in my career. So humbled to share a podium with him, and apologize in advance that you all get stuck with me after hearing a legend. It's an honor to be here today. Thanks for Case Status for the opportunity to share a little bit about our journey. Over the last few years, our firm's been very fortunate to have experienced some fairly significant growth. We've more than 4x'd our annual sign-ups since 2022, going from about 150 new cases a year to more than 600, hopefully hitting 700 this year. Been through a lot of growing pains over the last few years along that journey. But throughout our firm's 45-year history, we have always prioritized our client experience. So much so that for many years, we intentionally kind of capped ourselves and capped our intakes and were very selective in what we took to try to preserve that client experience. But a few years ago, we pivoted, in Bill's words, and we decided to embrace growth a lot more, and we started scaling the law firm. And the biggest concern our partners had, particularly our senior partners, were could we maintain the level of client service we had always provided with more cases? And as I stand up here today, I can confidently say the answer to that is yes, that we're providing better client service than we ever have before, despite 4Xing our caseload. And we can prove that now with data. It's not just a gut feeling about how happy our clients are. We have real data to prove that. I think our firm is living proof that growth and scaling don't have to be at odds with client service. You can have both, and you can do both well. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can scale and improve your client journey all at the same time, and they can actually fuel each other. And so what I'll share with you all today is some of the systems and practices that I believe help contribute to us ultimately achieving an 80+ Net Promoter Score. I'm sure everybody here's heard a Net Promoter Score and familiar with it at this point, but in essence, it's just a way that we can measure our customer loyalty, our growth metrics. It can be anywhere from a -100 to a 100. Clients are broken into 3 categories: promoters, passives, and detractors. And they are asked to rate us 0 to 10, and anybody that gives us a 9 or a 10 is a promoter. Anybody that gives us a 7 or 8 is a passive, and anybody that gives us a 6 or below is a detractor. So I think the first question we have to ask ourselves, and I've noticed this has been a recurring theme throughout the conference, which I love to see, is, what is the standard that clients are holding us to nowadays? Like many of you, for most of my career, I always viewed that standard as in comparison to other law firms. But over the last year and a half, it's really dawned on me that that's not necessarily the case, that most of our clients have never hired a lawyer before. A lot of them are never going to hire a lawyer again. And they're not comparing us to other law firms. They're comparing us to other industries, other companies like Amazon and Uber and DoorDash, companies that have mastered the client journey. And I think that's the new bar. That's the new standard, is speed and transparency and service. And if we're being honest, I think we all recognize the legal industry has a lot of room for improvement here. We've never been known for providing stellar client journeys. And, I think I heard a stat this week that the legal industry as a whole has an average Net Promoter Score in the mid-20s, which I think is on par with, commercial airline carriers, and it's not good. So if you truly want to build a world-class client experience, I think you really have to stop looking at what the law firm across the street's doing or across the country's doing, and start really looking at other industries and companies that are really redefining the modern day client experience every day. And that's how you really take your client journey to the next level. And so let's all try to take off our lawyer hats for today and just try to view things from the consumer lens that we may not necessarily be accustomed to. So what's our goal here today? It's really quite simple. We don't want you to be the McDonald's of law firms. We want to be the Ritz-Carltons of law firms. And these are all actually based on these companies' Net Promoter Scores and kind of where they fall on the scale. In 2024, we rolled out Case Status at our law firm, and we started collecting Net Promoter Scores at every phase change throughout the entire case cycle in our personal injury department. And so every time a case goes from welcome to record collection, or record collection to treatment, or treatment to demand, the clients are being asked on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer your friends and family to this law firm, and why? And so we get access to information and data that we were never privy to before. And if I'm being honest, it's because I was kind of scared to hear what they were going to say. Didn't necessarily want to open that door just out of fear. So in our first year, we did maintain our net promoter score in the mid 70s, which is a very good score and something we were proud of. But this year in 2025, we crossed into the 80s for the first time. And since that, we have noticed a direct correlation and an increase in our client referrals year to year. And so now my new goal is for us to remain in the 80s. We never want to dip below that. And it's extremely hard to do. And staying in that world-class territory, the way net promoter score metrics are measured does not leave much margin for error. But we want to be alongside brands like Ritz-Carlton and Amazon and Apple. We want our customers to be that loyal to us. And so that's our goal, and it's a very ambitious goal. But I do believe it's achievable. I think we're living proof of that, and it's not just our law firm. We're not anything special. I think any firm in here can achieve the same thing if you prioritize your culture and put the right systems in place. So my ultimate goal today is to give everybody a few very simple, concrete takeaways that will help you turn more of your clients into promoters that will ultimately lead to more referrals for your firm. Again, we want to be the Amazon and Ritz-Carlton client experiences and get as far away from the left end of that spectrum as possible. So why does this matter? Why does Net Promoter Score matter? I always envision giving a speech at a conference over some, major 9-figure verdict that I have obtained. I never fathomed I'd be talking about Net Promoter Score or, client intelligence, but, riding the wave, whichever direction it's going at this point. But I'm obsessed with Net Promoter Score for 3 main reasons. First of all, it keeps us honest. One of our firm's core values is providing extremely high quality client service. It's always been a part of who we are. And Net Promoter Score allows us to monitor that and to ensure that we're never sacrificing our service for growth. The second thing I love about it is it helps me measure our team's performance. Trying to figure out which case managers are excelling at client service is not an easy task without having data. I don't have to base performance evaluations on gut feelings or just on Google reviews. I have real data to be able to see how the case managers and paralegals are performing, and who's really excelling in client service, who's not, and dig deep into why. And then most importantly, I think the most obvious reason this matters is that it leads to happy clients and more referrals. And I think we're all familiar with the concept that, the highest value cases we're all going to see come from word of mouth referrals. At every conference or mastermind meeting I've attended over the last few years, no matter the firm size or the market, that has rung true consistently, that the highest value cases come from your happy clients who are referring friends and family to you. And Net Promoter Score helps you create more of those promoters at the end of the day. So I like to view it in 3 foundational pillars of what I believe has impacted our client journey and allowed us to create an exceptional client journey. The first is culture and accountability. The second is systemized touch points. And the third is memorable moments. And I'll briefly touch on each of those now. First, culture. Bill Biggs says it best. I would take his entire presentation and just plug it into this slide because he covered everything. And, it all starts at the top at the end of the day. Client experience can't be faked. It can't just be something ordered by management and expected the team to embrace. It requires buy-in from everybody, and it starts with you, starts with me, and it has to work its way down throughout the entire firm. Much of what I learned about culture has come from Bill Biggs, and his message has been transformational for our firm. A few years ago, I heard Bill speak at a PILMA conference. I thought we had a good culture at that time. Realized that day we couldn't have been more off base. So Bill's been a huge inspiration for me and transformational for our law firm. And I'd take his entire presentation and insert it into this section. And I'd also be remiss not to mention Ken Hardison. He's been a great mentor to me. And he's the one that first put this concept of Net Promoter Score on my radar a few years ago. And certainly wouldn't be up here talking about our 80+ score without both of them and the impact they had in my path. At our firm, just a few ways that we've kind of incorporated the client experience into our culture is we have weekly case manager meetings, and client experience is a recurring agenda item at every one of those meetings. It's the first thing on the schedule every meeting. There's never going to be a time where we check that off the list or say this goal has been met or we're moving on to the next thing. It is always going to be front and center as part of the conversation. constantly tweaking and improving our client journey. And our motto when it comes to client experience is if it ain't broke, then break it. And we try to do that every 2 weeks at our meetings. Another thing that I do personally, every Monday morning, sometimes extremely painful activity, but I sit down and review all the net promoter scores from the prior week and try to figure out, where the problems lie and, what we need to do to get things back on track. I also measure the response time every week. We closely monitor both of those metrics on a weekly basis. And same day responses are the expectation at our firm. That's not, optional. We do mandate that clients receive a response that same day, and our target is less than 6 hours. That's our goal. Lastly, I think this is probably the most underrated part of this slide is educating the team on what Net Promoter Score means and why it matters. And I think I admittedly didn't do a good job of that initially when we went down this path and started utilizing Net Promoter Scores. And it can be very intimidating for team members to be rated sometimes arbitrarily, at every step of the way by clients, some of which that may never be satisfied. But I think the best thing that I did for our team that has allowed them to embrace this and understand it is simply educating them on why we do this. And, I believe that our team understands the threats that our industry is up against. I think they know that providing an exceptional client experience is our lifeline and is our biggest competitive advantage right now. And again, culture can't be manufactured or ignored. It truly is the foundation for your client experience. And couldn't be prouder of our team and the way they have embraced this and how far above and beyond they are willing to go to preserve this in spite of our growth. The second category is systemized touch points. We've also heard a lot of this week, and I think that's a great theme. I think setting expectations for your team to communicate with clients is great, but that's not enough. You've got to go beyond that, and you need automated triggers built into your case management systems that force this and also give you a way to measure compliance. These are just three of the examples of ways that we've incorporated this into our processes. Client Connect is a trigger that FileVine pops up in every file every 30 days and just requires a monthly check-in with the client. We have various triggers like this for case managers as well as attorneys, so kind of different triggers for different roles. Another one, my favorite thing that we do is the Verbal Connect. You can automate everything under the sun and have every tech platform out there and, make it as easy as possible for your team. But if you're not picking up the phone and calling your clients, they're never going to trust you. They're never going to refer cases to you. They're never going to be happy at the end of the day. It is a critical part of the process to have that human interaction and build that trust. And that Verbal Connect is what is our lifeline on that. That's what forces our team to pick up the phone and make those calls. And the more tech you roll out and the more AI that you allow your team to utilize, the less inclined they're going to be to want to pick up that phone and make that phone call. And so it really is something you have to force. And I just cannot express enough the importance of that. Call and case status log is another thing we've done that we've been able to automate a lot of. Every time we do try to call a client, even if they don't answer, it's noted in the file. I think Lawrence LeBrock said yesterday, if it's not in the case management system, it didn't happen. And that's our defense mechanism. When a client says, haven't heard from anybody in 2 months, we can pull that case status log up and we can tell him down to the minute, how many times our team's been trying to reach out, confirm that we have the right number, and really defend ourselves and defend our team. And so that's a very helpful thing for the team to be able to document what they're doing. We also use Periscope, Domo dashboards that we've incorporated a lot of our client experience metrics into. This dashboard card on the left is what we have for at-risk clients, and this is what I can see on a management level whenever there is any case out there where the client has gone 30 days without communication. Sometimes it's that the case manager may not have logged it into the case management system, but other times it's because their caseload got too big and they're falling behind. And you can see here, ideally everybody would be 0 across the board, but we have one case manager with, 15 cases that fall into that category. And we know there's a clear problem with, an overwhelming caseload for that person. And we can get in front of that and fix that issue, proactively make those calls before any of those 15 clients start calling us and complaining. We also do automated phase change video updates that just explain to the clients in simple terms where they're at in the process, what's next, and try to answer a lot of the frequently asked questions along the way via video phase updates. I can't hear myself talk anymore, but it's a very simple video. My favorite thing that we do in terms of our client experience is creating memorable moments. I think this is the thing that our staff gets the most joy out of and the most purpose out of, and it really has resulted in probably more positive feedback than anything else I've mentioned. And here's the truth: clients are going to forget the vast majority of what type of legal advice you give them along the way. They're going to forget probably how much money you ultimately obtain for them at the end of the day, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. In fact, far more of our 600 plus reviews on Google at our main office talk about how we made them feel, not how much money we obtained for them, not the results in their case. So it really doesn't take much to do this. It can be one handwritten note, it can be one welcome box, one small thoughtful gesture, a call on their birthday. And you can give your team the discretion to be able to come up with these things on their own. Most of our case managers are the ones, the boots on the ground, talking to these clients. They know what they're going through. They know what their family may be going through. And they don't have to come to me and say, hey, so-and-so just lost, a grandparent, can we send them flowers? They have the authority and the discretion to do that. Another thing, we built a Domo dash card that pulls all of our net promoter scores across every client in the firm and shows us what our overall rating is at each phase change throughout the case. And so we quickly identified that our lowest net promoter score out of all of our phases came in the first 30 days of the case. And so now we are really honed in on trying to improve that client experience out of the gate. A welcome box is one of the things we've come up with that we send out to every new client to try to bridge that gap while we're in that hurry up and wait mode. Letters of rep have gone out. There's really not a lot of information to update them on, but just another touch point that can kind of hit them in that phase where there's typically some friction. Again, the discretionary gestures is something so simple, but has gotten so much positive feedback from our clients. So, all the things I've talked about, culture and accountability, everything Bill talked about, systemized touch points. And then if you're doing both of those things and then you start sprinkling in these memorable moments along the way, I think that's really the magic formula to having happy clients. And just showing some of our results since we started doing this through case status, we do have 91% engagement on the app. I'm extremely proud of that. We've maintained our 6-hour response time this year. I'm extremely proud of that. Average feedback score 9.4 out of 10 across the board, and we've been able to cross that 80 threshold on the net promoter score. And that's the power of making, I think, client experience a part of your culture. It helps your clients and it helps your people too. Our team, is saving thousands of hours every year, not having to field these phone calls because we're proactive about client communication. And I believe, we're truly building not just a successful law firm, but a next generation law firm, one where growth and client service don't have to be at odds with each other and actually fuel each other. And, I think that's where our industry is heading. And I think client experience is really one of the biggest competitive advantages out there right now. So I'll leave you with 3 quick takeaways, very simple, actionable steps you can go to your office on Monday morning and implement. And I think, that will start moving your firm in the right direction in terms of the client experience. First, prioritize your client experience, embed it in your culture, be intentional about your culture as it relates to client experience. Do this every week. Start with the recurring agenda item at your case management meeting and just start hitting and talking about client experience every week at every opportunity, and make sure your team knows how valuable it is to you and to their ultimately lifelines and success. Add at least one recurring touch point throughout your case management process. Very simple to do in FileVine. Most case management systems are similar set up to where it's very simple to be done. Again, my favorite touch point that we have is the verbal connect. I think that's the most critical in terms of clients building trust with us throughout the process. And then lastly, create one memorable moment into every client journey. And again, this does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be time consuming. It can be sending a simple card, flowers after a loss of a loved one, or somebody had surgery. And I mean, we had one client tell us they had a surgery and nobody in their family even bothered to check in with them, but they were just blown away that we took time to send flowers to them. And those are the type of people that are going to be lifelong referrers of your law firm. You don't need a 50-page playbook for this. You don't need an expensive consultant to tell you these things. I mean, start here, and I think you will immediately start seeing results. when my dad started practicing law in 1971, client service meant doing good legal work, answering the phone, calling people back, and that was really enough to thrive back then. And unfortunately, that's not enough anymore. Today's clients' expectations have changed. Clients expect Amazon level responses. They expect Ritz-Carlton level care. They're comparing us to other industries, other companies that are crushing the client experience. And I truly believe that the firms that adapt to embracing the client journey are going to thrive, and the ones that don't will not. So my challenge would be on Monday morning, don't just talk about client experience, change something, implement something, start making it a part of your culture. It can't just be an initiative or a quarterly project to knock out. It's got to be a constant focus of your leadership team and your case managers throughout your entire firm. It's not just an initiative. It's truly who you are. It's who your law firm is. And when you get the client journey right, an 80+ net promoter score is not just a number. It's just the natural byproduct of prioritizing that client culture. Do that, and I don't think you'll just build a successful law firm. I think you'll build a firm that leaves all your clients raving about you and not being able to stop talking about you. And in my opinion, that's the true future of our profession. More than happy to answer any questions y'all have. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. So that's a great question, and it was not an immediate response like that. We made it optional initially, and we found out that a lot of clients chose not to do it, and so now it's mandatory. But there is a method where if there's special exceptions for somebody that may not necessarily be capable of utilizing it, we can bypass it. But it's no longer optional for the team. It's no longer optional for the clients, and it didn't require any forcing. Once we did that and they started just automatically getting the link and the text and we explained it to them, we saw a direct result there. So I think we were almost too worried about clients, being turned off by it, that we gave them the choice, and a lot of them chose not to do it. And I think by just forcing it, it's a win-win for everybody. They are. They are using it. I mean, a lot. We have not forced them, to log their treatment, but we've noticed a lot of them are now just proactively using these features without us even really pushing them in terms of logging medical treatment. I know there's a lot of things in the works right now regarding their ability to do video updates to us after an appointment and transcribing that. And so, but yeah, they love it. I mean, they use the features, and we haven't had to. Once you get it in their phone and on their screen, and they logged in, I think it's all downhill from there. That's exactly right. We do have FileVine texting capabilities, and when we first started doing this, we would send initial texts from FileVine before we onboarded to case status, and it just was confusing to the clients, and so they never get a text from FileVine anymore. It goes straight from our lead docket process into case status, and that's their primary way of communicating. But we kind of just eliminated that other option, because from the consumer standpoint, you got intake, you got FileVine, you got case status. It can just be kind of overwhelming. So I think less is more in that regard. Sure. Yeah, that was an uphill battle. I mean, I get it. It's a hard job to be a case manager, and then to have clients being able to rate you, every step of the way throughout the entire process. And, it still kind of rocks people's days sometimes when we get a lower score that we're not expecting. But I think just educating them on why we're doing this, it's not for us to be able to say, oh, you got a 7, we're taking away your bonus or anything like that. It's so that we can ensure that, our competitive advantage with client service remains. And, we had a whole quarterly breakfast just talking about the threats that our industry's up against, and some of the, concerns with private equity and consolidation, and really explained all that to the team, and had them connect the dots with why we're doing all of this. And I think that was by far the biggest, positive. And I think that's what's led to the most success. But it was not a perfect rollout. I think I thought the team would be more receptive to it, maybe think of it as more of a tool. But, I think I may have made some mistakes along the way getting it out the door. But after that education piece came together, I think it all came together. So, yep.
So I think if everybody has a first 30-day problem, which probably looks a lot more like the first 5 to 10-day problem.
Sure.
What are some things that y'all have seen success in, that you implemented in that initial phase?
Yeah, I think attorney contact is critical in that phase. I mean, like Bill said, attorneys do not like talking to clients, but forcing it far more frequently your first 30 days, every 2 weeks versus once a month. Having more regular check-ins. Our paralegals are hitting everybody once a week for the first 4 weeks. But for us, I think the biggest friction point that I still haven't figured out is the property damage side of it. It can get people started on such a good note or such a bad note, and trying to figure out our role in that and how do we help them without just getting in the way. And so that's kind of where my focus right now is. I feel like we finally gotten the injury claim side of things, in a good place, but it's the property damage that is now throwing off, our scores in those first 30 days more than anything else. But, frequent contact is really the only answer I've got that's, worked for us. All righty. Well, thank you all again. Thanks for sticking around.